What's up? Oh, recording in progress.
Now we're good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take No Offense. Just a couple of old friends who grew up together in Pennsylvania and now live on opposite sides of the country, getting together to share thoughts on politics, sports, movies, and television. Oh, Max is he's very vocal.
This all goes on YouTube, per usual.
Okay.
You'll just have to chop it off.
Now, how? Oh, okay.
Start over.
Okay.
Well, like I said, this all goes on YouTube. So
How loud was it? Was it?
it's not.
Well,
I didn't even hear him.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll
You have excellent
yeah.
audio
Okay.
equipment, so you're a professional broadcaster, so you're good.
All right. Hold on. It's not really picking up the mic thing, so you're fine. Okay. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take No Offense. A couple of old friends who grew up together in Pennsylvania and now live on opposite sides of the country, getting together to share our thoughts weekly on politics, sports, movies, and TV. I'm Eric Messersmith in the Los Angeles area. That's Brian Johnson in the suburbs of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. This is Take No Offense. The first one, Brian, and how long has it been?
It's been quite some time, sir. It's been quite some time. A lot has happened between then and now. There's been some erasing or whatever, but it doesn't matter. We're back now. That's all that matters.
We're back now. I found the old show notes, and they were on the last show notes I have were on abortion.
Wow.
And how that would play after the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. So we're looking at summer of 2022. So not quite 2 years since we did the show last. But we're glad to be back. And in the meantime, a lot of things have happened. If we have any loyal listeners or viewers for like the five,
we actually had a lot. I mean, a lot is a hyperbole, but we had some.
At least a dozen souls who were loyal. So for those people who maybe will see this now, if they subscribe to the podcast, and maybe it will pop back up and they'll be like, what the hell is this?
Right.
I haven't heard. Where have you been? We have both been, living life. And what you start, Brian. Tell us what you've been up to in the last almost 2 years.
Well, I wanted to say the goal of the original podcast was to get you a job, in radio, because you're a professional broadcaster. And as it would turn out, that happened. Right?
It did.
It
was
like,
it was successful.
It was good. It was great. And it was successful. But now, I don't know. I love you, man. You're the best. Here we go again.
Here we go again. So yeah, unfortunately, when I got a job, I got a job at Fox News Radio through Sirius XM. They're Fox News headlines 24/7. Sirius XM channel 115. So I was doing sports updates, and I couldn't continue this as well. I still am employed there, but now I'm freelance. I stepped away from my full-time position in January. So now I'm free to do side projects as well. And I have, in addition to this little thing that we do, I also have another podcast / YouTube show with my friend Charlie Marlowe, based out of St. Louis. And we work together.
What's the name of that podcast?
That is called Everybody Settle Down.
Everybody Settle Down.
Similar theme to Take No Offense. So Everybody Settle Down. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. That's pretty much politics and news centered. So that's a little bit different vibe.
You haven't done the top 10 television shows of all time?
No, we have not done that on.
So disappointing.
So it's, there are a lot of similarities in the shows, but they are, a little bit different. But if you're really into politics and the big stories of the day, check out Everybody Settle Down. But it's good to be back doing this, Brian. So what about you, man? What have you been up to? I know, because we obviously talk, we're good friends, but for all of those 13, maybe 15 people out there, what have you been up to?
Well, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't offered a job. I believe a producer described me as your colorful co-host.
That's
I thought for sure the offers were going to be just flowing in, but alas, that has not. Long story short, I had a security company that I started with a group of investors. We sold that successfully to a national company, and then I'm back. I started another one about a year ago, and hopefully I'll sell this one in 5 years. So, I got two kids, a beautiful wife, a stack of liquor behind me. So just living the American dream, my friend.
That's right. That's all that really matters. All right. So the way we usually do this show, if you remember, or if you're just tuning in for the first time, is we kind of talk about one topic or so that's big in news/politics, and then something in sports, and then maybe a TV show or movie that we're either watching now or that we're looking forward to watching, or that we haven't watched in a long time, but we want to watch again. So that's kind of the general format. And then we kind of take it from there. So I figured on this show, we wouldn't get right into the presidential election, which I'm
we got
sure
time.
that's, yeah, we got a lot.
We got time.
And we're going to plan on doing this every week. Monday nights, we're going to try to record. So it'll be out on podcast version, probably late Monday, maybe Tuesday, but by the time I figure out how to do all this again. And there is a chance this will never air because I will not be able to figure it out. So there is a slight chance that nobody
college graduate.
That's true, but not a tech guy per se. So there is a small chance that no one will ever see this, but in case they do, that's kind of the general format. So we'll save the presidential stuff hardcore for later. Yeah. But I did want to talk to you about the big story, probably nationally right now, which is the protests going on at college campuses across the country, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli, depending on how you frame it. I think both are probably accurate. At some colleges and universities, they've taken over part of the school. Columbia University is probably the biggest one right now. As we're recording this on Monday night, a deadline has come and passed where the president of Columbia told them as of 2:00 Eastern, if they didn't leave the 10 encampment, they would be suspended. They haven't left. At least most of them haven't. So far, the police have not been called in to clear it, like Columbia did a few weeks back when a previous encampment was cleared out. But it's going on at places all over the country. And of course, it relates to the larger issue of what's going on over in Gaza right now with the Israel and Hamas war. You have a unique background, Brian, if you want to tell people about your background in terms of security in the Jewish community, and what are your thoughts on what we're seeing on these college campuses?
Sure. I'll keep that very brief. I was the director of security for a Jewish community organization in the Washington, D.C. area for over 5 years. I covered about 400 Jewish institutions in the area. But, in terms of background, my wife, God bless her, man.
By the way, if you're not watching, if you're listening to this podcast, we're on YouTube as well. And Brian's lovely wife, Trisha, in the background showing us a little leg. That's who that was.
Yeah. We're talking about the third rail here.
Yeah,
right. And so
that's what that was. If you saw that,
right.
That was his wife, not his girlfriend. But anyway, continue.
That's correct. So, I do have a unique experience in this way. I was actually thinking, I remember the protest in, oh my God, what was it? Right. Like, I don't know, 2017, 2018, during a conflict. And we had Palestinian protesters show up in DC, and, they show up in the full regalia, and, each side kind of knows what's going on. I mean, this is the old hat at this point, right? Like, this has been going on for a long time. So each side knows the stakes. They know what the laws are. People, they follow the rules. It's not violent. It's just everyone. It's free speech. It's what America should be. Really, it really is. I think this is a totally different set of circumstances, though. Don't you agree? Just given the level of death. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. This is, I mean, look, Israel and the Palestinians, the armed factions, have been fighting for as long as we've been alive.
That's what I mean.
Longer. And this is the worst situation, though, that we have seen on both sides. I mean, I think it's fair to say, like, Israel's fought wars bigger than this against outside nations, yes, if you go back through its history. But in terms of Israelis and Palestinians in the territories, yeah, we haven't seen anything like this, both what happened on October 7th and then Israel's response to it.
Yeah, I really want to focus on the college protest, though, and say that this is what college kids are supposed to do. To the extent, like, whatever they believe, I don't have a feeling on that one way or another. I really don't. But, like, exercising our free speech, like, I don't mean to, like, be all apple pie America waving the flag, but this is what we fight for, man. So you can be in college, you can feel passionate about something, and you can freely assemble and protest. that agree or disagree with the position. Like, I love that. I really do. I make the joke all the time. I've never felt so passionate about anything that I would go to a protest. Just like I wouldn't go to a sporting event with like painting my face or like holding up the defense sign. But I admire that in people, man. Like, good for them. They want to get out there and like make a difference. What I would say though, for all these kids in college is I feel like the pro-Palestinian stance is the much easier stance. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into the weeds on it, but like, yeah, no one wants innocent children and families to die. You know, the words collateral damage don't exactly warm hearts and minds, but in fact, they are part of a war, which Israel has every right to defend itself against that type of attack. And certainly we know the tactics. I'm sorry we're talking about this. I just know you know so much about it. I don't want to belabor it, and I don't want to belabor it for the audience because we know there are human shields. We know they use hospitals, to gather and strategize. I mean, it is, again, it's old hat, right? Like it's been going on forever. But in terms of the college protest, I feel like the pro-Palestinian stance is the easiest one. At the same time, I don't feel like saying that Israel's response on occasions isn't appropriate is anti-Semitic. I think you can, on one hand, criticize the Israeli government for some of the things that have occurred, just like I mean, we don't have the shows anymore because they've been deleted, but I was highly critical of our response in Iraq using advanced interrogation techniques. Like, it's okay to say, like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't torture people. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, we have had our own history with controversial. There's so much to get into with this, so many different layers to it, and I think a lot of it depends on just like everything else in our politics today, depends on the prism with which you look through it, right? I mean, on the one hand, we all should agree that protesting anything is in the tradition of America.
Yeah.
It's protected by the First Amendment, and we shouldn't be overly aggressive in cracking down on protests as long as, and this is the caveat that I think is being violated here with a lot of these protests, they don't violate the law or the policies of the university. And to me, that is the distinction that I think is important. And for instance, this Columbia situation, Columbia allowed this to happen. And so they finally have come out and been like, well, now we're going to start suspending you. And they have given these protesters the right to violate the university policy and camp for, weeks now. And it's the same thing at a lot of these other universities where they are clearly in violation of campus policy. And you see in some of these red states, they're handling it a lot different. At UT Austin, they've been cleared out. At the University of Georgia, or in school in Georgia. I don't know if it was University of Georgia or another school there. They cleared some people out who were violating policy. I think that's the way to do it, because I saw a Jewish student at UCLA today, and he posted a video, and he was being blocked by protesters from walking across part of the campus to his building that he had a class in. And he was filming it, and he showed a lot of composure given the circumstances.
Sure.
But he kept trying to get by them, and they surrounded him and they wouldn't let him through. And I'm just thinking,
that's anti-Semitism, like by definition, like clearly, like that's insanity.
Right. And could you imagine if that happened to name any other minority group? Let's just say a Palestinian, a Muslim, an African-American, a gay student. Could you imagine? It
doesn't matter anybody. That's insane.
Right. Could you imagine what the outcry would be? It would be vast. And I can't imagine universities would not, like, imagine a pro-Israeli protest that took over in violation of university policy, part of the university with a tent encampment, waved the Israeli flag, wouldn't let certain students pass through, harassed other students, occasionally chanted things that were seen as racist, whatever, against another group of people. How long do you think that protest would be allowed to stay in place? Not long is the answer. Exactly. Not long. And so this is part of some of these universities, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about every university, but some of these, especially elite universities, part of their ethos now. If it is a cause they agree with, or that is part of the culture of the kind of elite bubble they live in, which in this case is Israel's the oppressor, the Palestinians are the oppressed. That's what really matters. We're not even going to get into the nuance, which you laid out earlier, I thought briefly, but well, which there's a lot of nuance. If you know anything about the Israeli-Palestinian situation, it's all nuance. And it's nothing is black and white. And to make it so when I see that and I see the hypocrisy, and it's part of the larger argument of people love free speech until it's something they don't agree with. And then they want to crack down hard on it. But they also often are willing to defend things. And I think this is happening with a lot of people on the left right now. They are willing to defend things that these protesters are doing that they would never be willing to defend if it was people they disagreed with who were doing it.
Sure. To me, it's indefensible. I mean, the last thing I wanted to say on this topic is actually a story from Iraq, which I'm very well aware is not Palestine, but it's obviously a very Muslim country that is in that area that shares a lot of history with that region. So in Iraq, a social media star was shot dead out in front of her house. And this isn't the first incident of someone being killed for making TikTok videos in Iraq. Why am I telling this story? Because this is what you're up against. If you're on the pro-Palestinian side, you are delusional if you think that these people, the minute that Israel backs away, won't once again attack. Like, you're crazy. Like, I mean, it's not just because I worked within the Jewish community. I have that connection, but, you know, as it applies to like just security in general, like, Israel is an impossible position. Impossible. There's only one country that if they laid down their weapons, they would die, and that's Israel. If Palestine laid their weapons down, they'd be fine. Would it be perfect? Like, again, I think that's the nuance, right? Like, no, it wouldn't be perfect. That still wouldn't be the greatest place that you could possibly live in. But I promise you that Israel would not just simply attack.
Wouldn't just annihilate them.
Yeah. They would not annihilate them.
They would not do the thing they're being accused of right now
Exactly.
in it correctly, which is genocide. They would not do that. And they have not done that. And you can be critical, and I am, of the Israeli government. And
sure,
I've been
it's
critical
fair.
on my podcast.
That's what I said at the beginning, man. It's okay to criticize the Israeli government and not somehow be labeled racist or anti-Semitic.
Right.
Like,
so
everyone makes mistakes.
You can criticize the Israeli government, in particular Netanyahu and his government, which I have a lot of problems with, while saying they are not the same as Hamas. It is not a moral equivalency. And to make it one, or to even in some, let's be honest, some of these protesters, I won't say all, I won't say most, some of them believe that Hamas is actually the superior group. They admit they are pro-Hamas.
Then they should fly over there and check it out
and see
and let me know how it goes.
Yeah,
no,
I agree with you.
Honestly, people might think that's ridiculous, but I swear to God, man, just go. I'm going over there in September. I will not be around that because I would die.
Well, that's the thing about these protests. They're on me, at least, which, you know, I'm a sample of one, so I'm not saying this is representative of everyone, but when I hear a lot of what they say and I see the videos, like I mentioned, of the UCLA student and other videos, there was one of a professor who was a Jewish professor who couldn't get into the Columbia campus.
Oh my God.
The administration wouldn't let him in, even though they let these pro-Palestinian protesters take over part of the university. It makes me more pro-Israel,
sure,
even though I have a lot of problems with the Israeli government, but I'm like, you know, it pushes me in that direction. And just to a larger point, and you know, we won't get into this all right now, but right now they're negotiating a potential hostage deal to end, or at least have a temporary ceasefire, maybe a long-term one. And Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State of the United States, said today, this is an incredible deal for Hamas. Israel has gone above and beyond. I'm paraphrasing here. Hamas needs to take this deal. This is more than they could ever have imagined that they would get. And Blinken basically said, again, I'm paraphrasing, if we don't have a deal, it's because of Hamas.
Sure.
And they need to step up and do it. So that's just something to consider. All right, let's talk about something that's not quite as intense.
Not
The
quite
world.
as intense.
We'll go to the sports world. Do you want to do the NBA playoffs are going to be going on for a long time, so we can mention that. But did you want to talk about the NFL draft specifically, since it just ended and it's one of the more interesting sporting events on the calendar each year, which it isn't really a sporting event?
Well, we've talked about this before. Do you watch the draft?
You know what's funny? I watch. Yes, sadly, I do. And I never think I'm going to, but then I always end up watching it. But I mainly watch it around the time my team, our team, we grew up in Central Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh Steelers are selected. Because I really want to hear what Mel Kiper specifically has to say about each of the Steelers draft picks. So that is what I watch. But do I sit there for hours on end? And let me say this. Would I have been one of those 300,000 people that were there? I think on the first, I mean, did you see the drone footage?
The NFL is wild.
There is no chance in hell I would have been down there in the audience to see that. But yeah, I watched just to see, around the Steelers pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's the spectacle that is the NFL, right? It's non-competition. It's hope. The Bears were terrible. Now they have hope because they have the number 1 pick and Caleb Williams, who's, out in your area out there in LA. He's a really good player. I think that bodes well for the Bears that they got him. It's where failure is rewarded, the NFL, right? The worse you are, the better players you get. I didn't watch the draft I don't want to say at all. I checked it a couple times in the evening, but it's mostly just to read the list, like see who's picked and where they went. I don't have the passion for it that I used to, man. I just don't.
Yeah, me too. You know what, though? Every year I do get sucked in by thinking the Steelers had a good draft. But I'll tell you, now they got like an A- from Mel Kiper. They're getting scored so high by all these draft gurus. So now I'm really buying into it. And then I check myself and I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, come on. Remember, we're all just guessing right here. Nobody really knows.
The margins in the NFL are hilarious. The worst team in the league and the best team in the league are like 0.5. I mean, seriously, it's so close how incredible these guys are. The interesting part for me, just in terms of picks, was I thought it was interesting, and I'm sure this is out there, but the Falcons gave Kirk Cousins like $250 million, and then they select a quarterback with a number 8 pick. That was a little odd. I mean, I don't know. And Penix seemed like according to your boy Mel Kiper, like a little bit of a reach. I mean, there's stories like that every year that if you're a fan of a team, they really are interesting. And actually, it's the greatest part of being a Steelers fan is every year I know we're getting an offensive or defensive lineman in the first round. The occasional linebacker or free safety. That's why I love being a Steelers fan. Is it's not these world changing. No, they're just adding pieces every year to be a good football team.
Well, we tried to pick the quarterback in 2022 with Kenny Pickett with the 20th overall pick, and that clearly didn't work out. If you
that was a
reach.
Steelers
fan, yeah, it was. It turned out to be a reach.
Did it not work out? I seriously just two more seconds on this. Did it not work out? Didn't they make the playoffs both years?
They made it this year. They did. No, they did not make it last year. No, they didn't. I don't think so. I think they just missed last year.
Yeah, but
they finished over 500, but they just missed.
They always do because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, and everyone wants to fire him. Whatever. Anyway, sorry, man. I just thought that was interesting because, as a Steelers fan, you just always know we'll be in the hunt.
Is there any other sports topic that you have a hot take on that you just have to get off your chest for this episode?
That I just have to get off my chest? I would say Juan Soto in a Yankees uniform has been really cool, man.
Okay.
I know I'm the youngest, even though I have a gray beard and gray hair and everything else. I'm like, what did you say? I'm the youngest baseball fan in America. I don't think that's true anymore.
No, but and you also, I will say, you are way younger than you look, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's fair. That's a fair assessment.
It's the gray. It's the gray and the beard.
It is all the gray, but I just think it's so cool how well Juan Soto is produced in New York. I think this started the baseball season. Ohtani out in LA. If you're a baseball fan, it's going to be really cool with the Phillies. A lot of big market teams who have all-time great players. Like I said, in Philly, you have Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and JT Realmuto. I mean, they're going to be in it again. It's pretty cool. Are you going to go to any baseball games this year, man, out in LA?
No, I have not been to one since I've been here. So I
Wow.
should. I
Go
mean, the
to
Dodgers are
Chavez
so good.
Ravine, get a Dodger
I
dog.
need to, because I've been to Dodger Stadium, but not since I
Okay.
moved out here in 2019. But I do need to go. So I'm
You
clearly
got
not into
Otani out
baseball
there,
as much as
man.
I used to. Yeah. Although I do have a Bronx Bombers t-shirt
That
on right
interesting. I
now.
didn't even notice that.
It has, you may remember these players. Some are still with the Yankees. Judge, Stanton, and then a few others. It has, who is this? Gleyber Torres over here. DJ LeMahieu and
Yeah, yeah,
Luke
yeah.
Voigt.
No, dude, baseball for me, if you've been listening to this show, it's my favorite sport. And like I get it. Nobody cares. But it's just the most relaxing, fun. It's like an old friend. It's always there when you need it. You just turn on the TV. There it is. I love
Keyword being
baseball.
old. Keyword being old there. Yes.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
so, all right, let's do a little entertainment segment here. And we usually kind of focus on one big show each week or big movie that we both
Oh,
are
yeah.
watching or we're excited for. But in this episode, just kind of a catch up, first one in a while. What are you watching now, or what are you really looking forward to? Give me something that you've taken an interest in or that you're looking forward to seeing.
See, I think you'll find this interesting because the shows I'm watching right now are one, Breaking Bad, and my wife and I
Wow.
just finished watching Game of Thrones start to finish.
What?
So I'm
Oh
not
my
watching
God.
any new shows because Trisha had never seen Game of Thrones, which is incredible.
Oh my, that is incredible.
But I have to tell you, dude, just very quickly, the rewatch
Yeah.
of Game of Thrones better than the original one. You appreciate the show so much more.
Really? How so?
Well, I mean, so you know the story, which is the first 4 seasons follow the book. They're generally considered the best seasons. 5, 6, and 7 are men. Season 8 is a disaster. To be clear, season 8 is still a disaster. However, given the time away from it and me knowing the outcome of what happens, I thought the stories were very well done. They were very rich. I actually appreciate what they were trying to do at the time. The production value of that show, even today, is incredible. I mean, I know we're not that far removed from it, but even so, when was the last season? 2019, maybe? So it's like 5 years ago.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think it was right before the pandemic. Yeah.
It was like 5 years ago. I mean, it's an incredible show. I'm so happy I did the rewatch, man. But in terms of new shows, I mean, I'm waiting on you to tell me, like, what should I watch that's out? Because I try things and I'm like, nah, no good. I don't like it.
It's what am I watching right now? So I'm watching one show that's out now. I guess it just actually wrapped its first season, but I haven't finished it yet. And that's Shogun on FX, which is kind of similar in some ways to Game of Thrones. Are you familiar at all with it? Have you seen
I've never even heard of it.
Shogun is an FX show. Apparently it took years and years and years to make. And it's an action epic similar to Game of Thrones where you have but it's set in medieval Japan. So it's the medieval Japanese fighting for basically power with also outside interests from England and from Portugal
It sounds
involved as
interesting.
well. And it's loosely based on real historical events. So that is, yeah, it's pretty, I'm not sure how much it sticks to it, but it definitely has a basis in history. And I'll tell you, I don't want to give a full review yet because you know how it's very important to stick the landing. And you have to stick the landing. And I've only seen the first, I think, 7 episodes. And I think all 10 are out now on Hulu. And I guess on Disney Plus too, because Hulu content is there now, apparently. But I will say so far, it's not as good as Game of Thrones. I want to be clear. From a quality standpoint, it's not quite in that era, but it's not too far away. I mean, it's a pretty well done show, really solid across the board. But I don't want to give a full review because I don't know for sure how it's going to end.
I got you. I will check out Shogun. I'll give it a view and let you know. You've never led me astray.
I definitely don't want to lead you astray.
You never have.
I never saw the first time it ran The Righteous Gemstones on Max, the HBO
show. I
show.
bet you that's good, man.
So John Goodman and what's his name?
Kenny Powers.
Yeah,
Danny
from
McBride.
Eastbound and Down, Danny McBride, who is the executive producer of the show, one of the writers of most of the episodes. I think he's the creator of the show. It is. I'm a season and a half in. I think there were 3 seasons total.
It's pretty good.
It's hilarious. I mean, look, it is outrageous and raunchy and over the top. But the thing I love about the Danny McBride style, because this is very similar to that Eastbound and Down style, is he just goes for it.
Yes.
And he and the people on the show, they just go for it. And they make it like they take it seriously, which makes it funny. So there will be scenes where there will be serious music, like music you would expect in a drama for a scene that is just ludicrous. And but they play it straight and they're into it, and the acting is so good. I mean, John Goodman is a national treasure.
He's amazing. He really is.
I mean, he's so good, and the supporting cast is really good. Everybody's on. The writing's good. It is my kind of humor. Like, really, they just go for the whatever you think is too far, they are one step beyond.
That's your modus
operandi,
operandi, my friend.
Right.
It really is. You have always seen the line and just
gone right over
past it.
Yeah, they just go right past it. But it's got a little bit of heart too, and like I said, everybody kind of buys in and is in on what they're doing, and it's really funny. So I recommend Eastbound and Down, or not Eastbound,
Righteous Gemstones.
that too, Righteous Gemstones. So I'm about halfway through that.
But that's a show that's no longer airing.
I think it's done. Right, I think its run is over. I think
Did you see The Regime
last year? I want to say. No, I didn't. That's on Max right now, right?
Yes, it's over. It's a 6-episode miniseries with Kate Winslet. It's okay. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. Kate Winslet is fantastic, and the premise is good. It just doesn't totally land for me. I don't know why, but again,
she's what, like a dictator?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah, it's kind of like what's the spoof of Nazi Germany? It's almost like Mel Brooks kind of deal. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, forgive me for going off a reservation, but it's basically taking.
Oh yes, I do, but I don't
he's
remember
dancing
what it's
around the
called.
room and throwing the globe up in the air because he wants to take over the world. It's not quite that in terms of its humor. It has a Succession style humor. If that makes sense, where the cringiness is comedic, and Kate Winslet is over the top, but it's well done. I mean, like I said, if you have nothing else to do during your unemployment, you should check it out.
Hey, I'm semi-employed.
No,
right now,
I
okay?
tease. I kid.
So you gave that a 6.5. What now on your rewatch? What do you give Game of Thrones?
Oh, God, man, you are really putting me on the spot. So the real question with Game of Thrones is the final season so bad that it's not one of the greatest television shows of all time? And to that, I say nay. Nay. Game of Thrones is one of the greatest television shows in the history of American television, without question.
I agree.
They could have filmed a dog pooping and for season 8, and I would have been like, you know what? I'm going to give it a pass. I wonder what they meant by that. Like, it doesn't matter because it's so strong. It's like the second half of Albert Pujols' career, right? Like, Albert Pujols did not do well out in LA, but he's still an all-time great because the first 10 seasons were so good.
He was already a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you're right, because they were think about the moments, the Battle of the Bastards. I mean, the one where the episode where Jon Snow first is fighting the White Walkers. I mean, there are just some amazing episodes of television in that show. And yeah, I think you're right, because I was looking, actually, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I was looking back at the notes that I have in my phone, which are the last show we did.
Yeah.
Or some of the last shows we did. And I have in that list my top 10 all-time TV shows, because we did an episode on the top 10 shows, and I had Game of Thrones number 5.
That's fair.
So I agree with you. Despite the ending, it's number, and man, if it had stuck the landing,
But
It
no
might have been number
show
one.
sticks the landing. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, right? Like, I'm watching Breaking Bad. I only know what happens. Everyone stand by. Spoiler alert, Walter White dies. Because of course he does, because they set that expectation at the beginning of the show that he had inoperable, incurable cancer. So we knew at the end he was going to die. We didn't know how he was going to die, but we knew how he was going to die. But think about all of the greatest shows of our lifetime. Have any of Lost? Dude, I've never been so sad in my entire life. I felt like they had 50 things that they had to tie a bow on and Lost, and they did like 3 of them. Like, the smoke monster doesn't even make sense. Like, what are we doing? That was years of my life invested.
Yeah.
And it just,
I think of a few did. I mean, look, I think you're right though that most of the great shows didn't end as well as they could. Like, I'm looking at the list right now. The Wire. That last season with the newspaper, that was not its best season.
Yeah, but still, they tied a bow on that one because, like, what, I can't remember the writer's name, and I feel so bad because he's a goddamn genius.
David Simon, was it?
Yes,
Is that right?
yes, David Simon. Because he was just trying to show that, like, no matter what happens, this is just going to happen over and over and over and over again, and that was the entire point. So The Wire wasn't that bad, but go back to your list. Sorry.
I was going to say I don't know. Did you finish The Americans? The Americans had a great ending. That's on my top 10 at number 9, but they nailed the ending. An incredible last episode.
I think of all the shows in the top 10, The Americans may have done it the best. I can't dispute that.
And I think the thing about Breaking Bad is its ending to me was fine, but I almost wonder if it would have been better if it had ended when it should have ended, which was that amazing episode they had when Walter had to say goodbye to his family.
Yeah.
And after his brother-in-law was killed. And then, of course, you had the couple episodes after that where he went off to where it was, New Hampshire or something, and then came back. I almost wonder if it had just ended there where he kind of like got away with it, if that would have been, because the show either way was great. And I didn't have a problem with the ending as it was, but I almost wonder if it would have been better if he never had come back and, spoiler alert, died.
So here's the thing. I admire people who, like, George R.R. Martin is amazing, right? And for anyone who's critical of the ending of Game of Thrones, this is what I want you to do. I want you to create a world with hundreds of characters, in depth, in detail, and connect everything together into multiple novels that span decades. Good luck, man. Because everyone thinks they have a story to tell. Like, oh, I work at a construction site and this thing happened. It was really funny. That should be a TV show. Make a TV show out of that and let me know how it goes. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you're taking this thing that is incredible. It's amazing. How is it going to have a satisfactory ending for everyone? It just can't. Like, the most famous ending in history is probably The Sopranos, right? When you say The Sopranos is probably the best one. I heard this theory the other day, by the way.
I don't know if it was the best. It's controversial.
No, I didn't say it was the best.
I thought it was fine.
Locally, like, the most WTF finale.
Yes.
The fade to black, right? So I heard this theory the other day that The Sopranos fade to black was the audience getting shot and dying. And I thought, that is fantastic. Like, I don't know who thought of that, but you know what? I like it. There's something to it. But you know what I'm driving at, dude, is like The Americans, The Wire. We're talking about some of the greatest writing in television history. That's why they're the greatest shows in television history, with the acting and the direction. But the storytelling is what matters the most. I've told you that a million times, man. I'm not a big fan of wizards and dragons, and it's not my thing. But I was into Game of Thrones.
Well, speaking of Game of Thrones, we have House of the Dragon coming up season 2 this summer. I actually liked the first season. I didn't, it's not as good as Game of Thrones. Let's be honest right off the bat. But I actually thought it was fine. Like, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I'm excited to watch season 2. We'll see how it goes.
I think the issue with House of the Dragon is you already know what happens. Like, that's.
Well, I don't know what happened. I mean, I know what.
Oh, you haven't read it.
I don't know what happens in that story. No, I don't.
Oh, well then, good for you, man. I need, how I am.
No, I have
like
not
movies
read
come out, and the day they come out, I go straight to Wikipedia and read the plot before I go see the movie. So I can't help.
Right. Right.
I need to know.
All right, dude, this was fun. It was good to get back on the horse. Do you have any closing thoughts, any words of wisdom?
Oh, I don't have any words of wisdom. I'm just so happy to be, dude. It's just nice to see your face. It's nice to talk to you. I learn things from you. You teach me. It's wonderful. Thank you. This is great, man. So happy we're doing it again.
I feel like you should. Yes, me too. I feel like you should just call me professor from now on, since I'm like the teacher, you're the student. I'm like Obi-Wan, and you are, you're Anakin.
I'm a young
basically.
Padawan. Dude, I'm not Anakin. There's no way I'm Anakin. I'm too lazy to be Anakin. That guy cared.
He did. He did care. All right, that was the first one in a while. We're gonna try to do this every week. Hopefully, we can get the tech
I'll
figured
do
out,
better.
and someone will actually see this. Fingers crossed. Thanks for listening and watching. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and check us out on YouTube for Brian Johnson. I'm Eric Messersmith. We hope that you enjoyed the show, but if not, please take no offense.
I love it.